Here you have the main characters of Touch Me Not, Golden Bear winning movie at this Berlin Film Festival. And I would like to introduce you Adina Pintilie, the director of the movie. Welcome to TIFF Lounge.
Mulțumim. Thank you for inviting us.
Laura Benson. Welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Anna Hoffman from Germany.
Hello, just hello.
Thomas Lemarquis. Grit Ullman.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And Christian Berlein. Welcome everybody to Club. Yes. Miss Adina Pintilie promised she will help me at moderating this very emotional meeting. Thank you for this. And I'd like to start with you and ask you...
I'll moderate myself.
Yes, please. You said several times that at 20 years old you know nothing about intimacy.
No, 20, I thought I knew.
Yeah, you know.
Now I don't know anymore.
And the question was if you still learned something.
Continuously, like... I think the process is never gonna end. Life is full of surprises. I mean, like up to 20 you live, there is one point when Laura was really beautifully saying in the film, like, you think that when you are gonna be 18, all of a sudden this miracle age comes. And, freedom appears. And then you realize what a difficult thing actually is to achieve this freedom. The process started like this, started from this premise that, I thought I knew things, but life showed me that I know nothing. So I wanted to give up in all these ideas I had about intimacy, like from family, from education, from society, and to really discover with a new, open mind, let's say, at least I tried, how people experience intimacy, really.
How did you find Laura and how did you convince her? How did she...
Shall I? We try to maybe keep the privacy of the process, this is also this whole thing with a mix of fiction and reality. But that's also like, do you want to go there? So actually I started by looking for like-minded people that would like to join me in this process, and the casting was not like the one for a usual fiction. It was more like looking for like-minded people that would like to join me, and that also have like this ability to, and this desire also to share their experiences and their process with the viewer and with the camera. And we started with this sort of small exercises, which were a sort of personal diaries, where I needed to feel like their ability to go into places of often uncomfortable honesty, and to be able also to share it with me and with the camera. So we had diaries, for example.
For how long?
There was a first test, there was a first diary, and then based on this diary I would invite them to a long and exhausting interview, which was not really, they didn't know what they should expect, but it was more like getting to know each other. And they had exercises where they had to work with their body and with their emotions, and I needed to feel them and to understand how open they can be and if they really want to be in this. And with Laura, it was a very specific meeting. One of the exercises was about music, and like the person that I invited for the casting was supposed to bring me a piece of music which was highly relevant emotionally for them. and then during the casting, in front of the camera, to share with me why that piece is really important and to have their body work with that music or relate to that music, which could have been singing along with the piece or describing what the piece means to them or dancing or lying down and sleeping. It could have been any reactions. And Laura brought me really a piece which I love also, that's of course very subjective. It was from Dark Side of the Moon, a Pink Floyd piece. What's the name? A Gig in the Sky. Even the name. It was a gig in the sky, and the moment when she started to, like, basically she was with all her body expressing how that piece works emotionally on her, and it was such a power and an energy in this body in relationship to the music that key sensation that I had had a strong impact. So this was because, and I realized later, I didn't know in the beginning, it was just a feeling. And actually this is what happened with this film. The experiences first happened in the feelings area, and it took a time to conceptualize them and to put a structure and to explain them. This whole moment of her relating to the piece of music encapsulated the core of the character, Laura, which meant that, and if you look now at the journey that Laura has, it's a sort of a quest for freedom. It's a liberating movement. She's trying to get rid of blockages and to break free. So
let's hear her about this liberation.
You want me to talk about Laura's...
What were the boundaries in the beginning and in the end? Personal boundaries.
Me, Laura Benson boundaries. You don't think I'm going to talk about my boundaries, do you? I can't actually... it's a feeling. And the feeling of Laura's... of the film, Laura's imprisonment or difficulties or loneliness are things that I can understand.
Can I help you? You don't seem to be an actress in the movie.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So you seem to be Laura Benson going to the personal frontier.
Well, I think Adina's work is about being truthful and real, and I do conceive acting as being truthful and real. And I consider performing, you have to use who you are and bits of you that you don't really like, because people aren't interested in happy, really nice people in films. You know, they're interested in dark sides, they're interested in difficulties and how the human being is going to reveal itself in all its dimension, which isn't all nice. So you have to confront things that you don't like and that are uncomfortable. And things you don't like about yourself, people like sometimes, and things you think are really nice about yourself, people don't like at all. So it's just attempting to use as much of your person that's relevant to the film as you can. Does that answer your question?
A little bit.
Not completely.
did you, in all we did you really think of what people would like or not?
No, I mean that in terms of, because I teach as well, so I know that, you know, with the difficulty of being oneself, and acting is about accepting all aspects of oneself, not just the bits one wants to show. And I know intrinsically that means going into places that you don't like out of fear of being judged, out of fear of being rejected. That's a bit what I meant. And it's not that when I work I think about what people are going to think of me. It's just that I know that part of the difficulty in being free with oneself is accepting aspects of oneself that one's afraid of showing.
Thank you. I want to move to Christian because you told me they have to catch also a plane at 6:30. And Grit will help us, thank you. I read that you like science fiction.
Yeah.
And the question is, did you feel you were acting and playing, or that you were telling your own personal life?
I think a bit of both. And I must very much agree with Laura in that you always, when you act, you have to use your own personality to incorporate whatever you want to present on the screen. But I must say that I'm happy that I have my role in the film and not Laura's, because Laura's role is far more difficult with getting out all the dark sides. And I had the easy opportunity just to be a bright, happy, guru-like character, you know, inspiring and such, which is far more easy, I must admit. And it also reflects on many of the insights which I really had. In real life, I'm more of a normal person, not that much of an inspiration or guru, but that aspect is also in me. Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. What risks did you take with accepting to be a part of this movie, speaking of public image? And why did you do it? Yes, both your public image.
I already had my image as being open, and so I didn't have to lose anything, and I'm not afraid of that anyway.
And you were also explaining at one point your emotional motivation to make this film.
Yeah, it was much bigger than the fear I have of losing a position or so, because I'm an activist for the rights of disabled persons, and I think that inclusion doesn't stop where sexuality begins. In fact, that it actually only starts there, because inclusion is about being a valid part of the society, and what can be more valid or more valuable than being loved and being a sexual being. So I think that every disabled person has the right and has the ability to be a sexual being. So I really want to teach that to people.
And for my part, when I got in a relationship with Christian, I had the fear that this can also go, so like I can lose on that as well. But as I went on with it, at one situation where I felt, oh, maybe I should just keep it secret, or in areas where people know me and so on. But as our relationship got on, I got much more confident that this is not something which we need to hide, or we need to it should be open. And I, for myself, carried myself like that, and also in the film. It was not something where I had doubt that this would be the wrong thing to do. Also, yeah.
Thank you. Thomas? Yes. Welcome. My question is for you was it hard not to have a delimited part as an actor, to build a role you don't know from the scratch, from the start?
Yeah, that was the hard and the exciting part of this project. And unusual for an actor to, because normally you have a more defined script. But this was also this process bringing us to go into this out of the comfort zone, which a lot of magic can happen, but it's extremely scary because you're jumping into the unknown and you don't know where you're going to land or what's going to happen. But in the air, you just have to be inventive, and things start to come up from deep down under to the surface. And it was a very good surprise to see what came out of it in the end. But the process was difficult because going into these unknown areas also brought up difficult things up to the surface, which can be difficult to deal with, or can stir up some things, opening up some closed drawers that you don't want to open up, and that's also what we're offering, I think, to the spectators, is to be this mirror to people, also with this honesty or with showing us so vulnerable. It also invites the spectator to open up these doors, which can be painful, and it's been interesting to also hear the reactions from the public, that people maybe don't see this film in such a conscious way, but often also very in an emotional way, or a few people start to be like feel a sensation in their body, and can be also painful things that come up, and so for some people it's not easy to watch necessarily the film, and for some also I think it even projected on the film things that can be uncomfortable in themselves also.
We will want to hear Hannah and then give the public the microphone. Welcome. What was your biggest challenge at this movie?
Well, I was in a little bit of different situation, so I thought, because I'm a sex worker and I moved there just to do my job. Yeah? The exciting element was that I will be hired by a female client, which I never had before. Yeah? And the motivation, well, was once to show a little bit of transsexual, not being a drag queen, but being a little bit more normal person. And on the other hand, I remember just the second point, which I didn't mention till now, 3 or 4 years before, when we took the casting, there was a big discussion about sex work in Germany. She wanted to make it more regulation and so on, and some wanted even to abolish it and so on and so on. And I just also was the intention that sex work may be an interesting and satisfying job to do. So, well, and I just caught me in the backwash.
I want to please to explain, because in Romania sex work is forbidden.
Yeah.
To explain what does this encompass in Germany? What sex work means in Germany?
Sex work in Germany, there was a law about sex work in 2001. Yeah, which only 3 small paragraphs, yeah, and which took away the moral implications about that. Yeah, it just you got the right being paid, and it's got the moral a little bit away. It's difficult to explain because so it was widely almost not regulated. You could do it. Only what you have to we expected to do is paying taxes. And then there came this there was a very much discussion about, especially about migrant sex workers, yeah, which some people don't feel so comfortable, and so, oh, these poor women being exploited and something like this. I didn't see it like this, but and there was a strong feminist attitude. The feminists was divided into 2 parts. One agreed that this may be a sort of freedom. Others said, no, this is exploiting women. It's always exploiting women. You couldn't discuss with them, yeah. And so at least there was any talk show and so many talk shows and so many newspaper articles and discussing. One of the most prominent feminists Alice Schwarze, I don't know whether you know her, what was very fierce about abolishing us, and so finally we decided we had to make a community and organize like trade unions, as it helped a little bit to weaken this legal impulse, and we have now legislation which is not perfect, but okay, we have to live with it.
To explain a little bit, so there is this whole, like for me, meeting you and discussing, because you remember I wanted to do a casting for real, I wanted to work with real sex workers, and basically like meeting you and with all these discussions and other casting sessions, I realized that like, you know, my preconceptions about sex work disappeared gradually, because I realized that like indeed you cannot deny that for some people sex work is exploitation, maybe it is, but for many other persons it's a tool for self-exploration, it's a tool for, it's a sort of a therapeutic approach, so that there are different types of sex work, like for example the work that you are doing or the work that Shani Love is doing, it's also sex work, you know, so you have to look at it like with an open mind and to see the differences and to, you know.
Yes, at 2 points, it's very urgent, it's very important to me. It's right, it's for many women, sex work is a sort of exploitation. But I just question you, which other chance do these women have? That's the point. You cannot abolish it without offering something else to do, to earn money. That's the point. It's only about abolishing. What happens next, nobody thought about. And that's the offension, this rich, studied, privileged woman just...
You mean the feminist, the left side?
Yes, no, not looking at something special, which don't even know what you are talking about, That's the one point. And the other point is especially about transsexual sex working. If you take hormones to make the change from male to female, you get almost a second puberty,
What does it
puberty.
mean? Puberty.
Puberty. And you have to explore again your body, and so it is in the beginning very fascinating. Of course, you get more and more routine in this. And when I met Atina, the point was we talk about that. It's completely true. But I was making sex work for 6 years then, and so it become more and more a little bit routine also, So it was not at the high of, it was not a point which is so pressing to me, So I look for new, for new Herausforderungen, challenges, for new challenges, And so this having a female client seemed very suitable to me,
Yeah, you were basically explaining to me that for people with the fluid gender or transgender or intersex, as you call it.
No, is it something different? Oh, sorry. Okay.
We can go into that immediately. So for people which are dealing with the identity in this area of gender, sex work can often be very useful as a tool of self-exploration, in the sense that because the relationship that you have with your body, it's often challenging, also because of all the prejudices of society and everything. Like within the sex work context, you have the chance to really explore your femininity and to really explore what you like, and that's what you are explaining me.
That's good. Well, you explained it. I cannot add further very much. It's completely correct what you described. Only intersex is something else. Transsexual is to want to move from a male to a female or from a female to a male, and the wish is to do it completely. Intersexes have other problems. But I'm defining me as a little bit as an intersex animal because of the appearance. This androgyn shown what I do, Mix, this mix,
Thank you. I invite you to raise and put questions to our guests. Who breaks the ice? please. We need a mic here. And please name the person.
Okay, I'm Alma Andrescu. I also have a short here in competition, a Romanian short. And first of all, I wanted to thank you, all of you, for making the film and for being courageous enough to share personal sides, even if they're fictionalized, some of them. I'm not sure which parts are fiction, which parts are real, but maybe it doesn't matter. But for me, the effect it had is that I'm working on opening up more and being not judging so much, expanding my horizon, and I think I'm open mentally to different types of sexualities, but I'm not so open emotionally, accepting, really understanding deep down what's going on with certain people and why, what kind of desires they have, what kind of desires I have that I might not be open to. And this is one of the main things that the biggest benefit I would say I felt from your film, and that I think Romania can benefit a lot from, because I think we're pretty conservative in these terms, and yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for this first.
No question.
And thank you for the feedback, because this is a very, very valuable feedback.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, one question regarding, because I said about our society, I think we're a bit more closed up and we can benefit from your film. How come you don't have any Romanian actors or people that you had?
Am I not a human being?
Sorry, of course you, but you're the drive, you're the main drive.
Well,
apart from
yes, the whole crew is also...
No, I meant...
I am real, flesh and blood. So I am
Apart from
there,
you, of course,
and
that's
it's
what I
also like the DOP. There's also Paul Dunca there, but he's wearing a mask. There are several. There are Romanian members of the cast. The cast it's multinational. I mean, this whole project it's really a good sample of this concept of European Union. Also in terms of culture, it's a good example of how AaRC.ro concept works and Media Creative Europe. So it is a co-production between 5 European countries, with cast from 8 or 9 countries. And it's not only in terms of financing, but it was also shot in different countries. It was also like the post-production process and everything. So I think this is a film which crosses borders. It's a film which goes beyond the individual cultural differences, because it's investigating this really crucial part of each human being life, which is intimacy.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question there.
First of all, congratulations for the movie. It was mind-blowing and soul-blowing. I just want to ask you all, how did this film change your life? Each of you. If something happened after you saw yourself on the screen and while filming and everything, if it changed your life in any way. Thank you.
I would say it has changed my life, yes. I mean, this film, and I've been working on myself a lot also through other means with shamanism, and I was doing that also on the side during the film, so I was also in a process of transformation, and also in the film in a process of transformation. But what really the film brought to me, I would say, is because also things that we maybe not, because it's only the top of the iceberg, the film, what we see. There was so much work that we did that didn't end up in the film, but all the diaries and talking about emotions, it's something that we don't necessarily learn to do like through the parents or society, and I think I have to say that I've become much more open, daring to talk about my feelings, and I learned that also from my personal guru here in the film. But yeah, that's something that's really has changed, I would say. I'm more open to talk about that.
And how about your relationship to the jaguar? If you want to talk about it, I don't know.
Yeah, I can talk about that. It's not really related to this. You think so?
I think so.
Yeah. We've been having this little talk because I was talking to young actors here in Romania. What's it called?
10 for film.
Yeah, 10 for film. And I was talking about my career and sharing some tips. And one of the things that came up in the talk is how to manage the stress, because when you work as an actor, there are many stressful things that can come up. That it's very expensive to take films, so there's a financial pressure, there's a time pressure because light is coming down, or you're in some people are running around and screaming, and then you have to stay calm, and so it can be tricky. And like, this is one of the tools I've been learning through shamanism, is that according to shamanism, the fear resides here in the second chakra. And sometimes they call it, in the tradition I learned in Peru, they talk about it as a jaguar. And when you get stressed, the jaguar gets tense like this. And when you're like this, it's very hard to act because you're all tensed up like this. So you need to find a way to relax the system. So this is a technique to visualize your fear, give it a visual image. So you visualize your tense jaguar up in a tree with all the hair standing out. And you go up in the tree and you start talking to the jaguar. You say, calm down, it's all gonna be fine. You go in discussion with your fear, and you get the jaguar down the tree. And in this way you can get your system down, and then you can go in and act the scene. So this was a talk about the jaguar.
So my question was, what was the relationship with the jaguar in this particular experience, not in acting in general?
Well, it's because this process was often very challenging, to going out of our comfort zone and bringing up some things that the jaguar got a little bit tense between, I mean, in every one of us, and that's also what I'm very grateful for, that it was not a system of hierarchy where there was a big boss and the actors and the big boss telling us what to do, but we were all in this laboratory, we were all in a process. So Adina was also going through this process, and that's also why we were able to trust her so much, because she was also trying to find out how we're gonna make a film out of this thing. So sometimes her jaguar came out, and sometimes it was mine, but we were always respectful of each other's jaguars, and knowing that, okay, she's in the process, I'm in my process.
Respectful zoo around.
Of animals, yeah. Something like that.
And like, very important, I think it was, and I want to bring this up because you are speaking about the jaguar and the relationship with the fear, was the fact that you were telling me at one point that you realized this thing, that when you watch the film, you realize actually that this ability to be vulnerable and to work with your emotion and with your fear, it's actually a strength, and it made you feel really empowered and powerful afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like Laura was saying, it's often these parts that we are hiding, that we are so afraid to show, that are our most beautiful parts in the end, when we dare to open up to them and show them. And that's the strength, that's being human, and it's just beautiful to be a human in the end.
Let's also hear Laura about changing life.
Well, there are lots of things to say. I'd say I don't know, I'd probably be easier to answer the question in a couple of years, to see where the doors that have opened take me. But for example, I realized how little I'd explored my sexuality, for example. And I realized that when meeting Hannah and Shawnee, and then on the film, when I saw the film, listening to Christian talking about his relationship to sexuality. And so I thought, God, I've wasted so much time. So that's, I'd say it's kind of realizations. And I've met people on the film that I would never have met before as well. So that's a widening of horizons. And then that's already quite a lot. I'd say it's kind of given me scope, and it's a never-ending. You know, as soon as I feel I move forward, the horizon goes back. You know, so I think, oh God. Oh. So I just know there's a lot more to explore, and that life is really, really rich. You know, when I listen to Hannah speak and Christian and Shawnee, I just think, God, there are so many different people out there who have so many things to say, and my outlook was very restricted. So I realized, like I said the other evening, you know, how narrow-minded I am. Oh, and there is one thing, I knew there was something. I realized how, a bit like water can become ice or can become steam, that energy, even really painful energy, can be transformed into pleasure. And it's actually not in the film because it was a diary that I did for Adina, but I woke up one morning and because I had 6 days off the film, and she very sweetly gives us these cameras and asks us to film some personal diaries. And it was, the filming with Shawnee happened 2 days in a row. And in fact, after that, things happened. I had these most incredible dreams, and I woke up one morning and I had these things to film. And I put my body, it was like a kind of flash I had in the morning, and the bedroom or the sitting room I was in had this very, very big window, which was bigger than me but smaller than if I stretched my arms. And I just put myself in the window frame and screamed. And in that scream I found, I'd say, something close to a sexual pleasure. And I realized that blocked energy, if it changes places, it can become something else. And so it made me understand what sadomasochism was, and how it just changed my judgment on what sexual practices, different things that people like. It's not at all what it looks like.
Thank you. I'm very happy to meet you. 2 questions. For Adina, will it be a second part of Touch Me Not? I would be interested.
Yeah, I mean, we barely finished the first one, but it's an ongoing process. This film comes out of a long-term research. It's part of a long-term research, and we continue it and we take further. There is also a multi-platform project. Like, we are gonna do this several films out of the material that we gather, but also a performance installation, several different formats.
And the second question, was there something about intimacy or sexuality which you would want to put in the movie but you didn't?
Wait and see, I was just saying, it's coming, the next installments.
Thank you very much.
I think it's an endless territory for exploration. It's really an interesting one.
I felt the same. Thank you.
I'm glad we opened the curiosity, I hope.
Yes, every character moved something in me, and it was very interesting. Thank you.
Can you say it again?
Every character in the movie moved something in me and changed some things. You had me thinking a lot last night.
That's great, because this was the purpose, the initial drive of the film, to be like a sort of an invitation to dialogue with you, the viewer, to be like a sort of a mirror in which so you can look at our process and you can hopefully like, I don't know, find something that can open the self-reflection area.
You did it. Thank you.
Good.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen the movie because it was sold out, but I tried to understand bits about it from your conversations. And you talked about fear and blockage. And for me, it's a curiosity if the blockage or if the fear is primary on behalf of the fear of others or on what you might discover on yourself. This is something I don't understand, especially that if these blockages are passing the blame game, how would you handle it afterwards, as a public, as an actor, as any kind of human being? So which is primary, the fear of being exposed or the fear of finding things that you don't
Very good
want
question.
to find?
Depends for who.
Adina?
I think they are deeply connected. You know, so because in this process, like in the process that we've been through, there is also this layer of sharing it with the camera all the time. And it's also this process of exploring things about yourself in relation with the other person. It functioned, the film I think functioned very much like, and we didn't realize this in the beginning, but it functioned a bit like in psychotherapy. And when I say psychotherapy is like, I am very aware that very often psychotherapy is perceived like when you go to a psychotherapist, you go like, there is this preconception that something is wrong with you and you go like to a doctor to cure you or something. I totally disagree with it. I see psychotherapy as a sort of a process of self-reflection in which, in relation to the therapist, basically you readjust and you reshape some circuits in your brain, which you deblock some aspects, because the relationship with the therapist, it's basically helping you in your self-reflection. So as as our consultant, we worked with several consultants, psychotherapists for the film, and they were like explaining that in psychotherapy, basically you relearn how to relate in a relationship with the therapist. And in a very strange way, this happened somehow with us in the film, because in relation with the other person, you understand things, you know, there are things that happen between them in front of you. It's like in family constellation, and you have this, all of a sudden you have this understanding about, you recognize something that you know very well, and you understand something about yourself in this relationship. So it's interconnected. I don't know if this answers your question, but it's this mirroring system, this mirroring process that we worked with in the film, which worked on both layers, and it goes hand in hand.
I think that there is a scene which actually answers this question, exactly this question, is a scene between Christian and me, where I talk about that. I thought it was the fear of the outside, but it ended up being that a fear of what I let out, I think. So I think that's something we address in the film.
Actually, because you haven't seen the film, trying to be very brief, Christian, it's like Thomas and Christian participate in a workshop of emotional anatomy, and there is a beginning of the journey where Thomas has this sort of like wall. Christian is visualizing this thing as a wall that for Thomas it's more like a protective wall that you know, defends him from the outside dangers, but all along the process there is an opening, a soul opening that happens inside him, which makes him realize that basically this wall was something that protected him from the danger of the emotional universe that he had inside. So this kind of... Christian, you wanted to add something, no?
I think that that can't be really that can be really separated from each other. Every sphere has facets which come from the inside and has facets that come from the outside. First of all, emotion is always an inner state because it comes from the limbic system, which is a part of the brain. So it is inside our heads and without us as a person. And so it's always an inner feeling. But on the other hand, human beings are social beings, and we are educated, and we live in a culture, and we have contacts, and we have grew up somehow with parents or whatever, and that shaped us and our personality and our conception of what we want to have and what we are afraid of. So this inside and outside, I think it's not separatable. And anyway, reality is also, it's a concept. It's all in your mind. What you perceive in your mind as reality is all made up in your brains. So there is no distinguishment.
Thank you.
Can I ask one? Or?
Yes, and then we'll go there.
So first of all, thank you for this incredibly beautiful and immensely for me, it was really a gift. I've always considered myself quite an open-minded person, and after the movie I realized I was not. I had, for example, never considered the sexuality of people with disabilities, and after the movie I felt stupid and narrow-minded, so thank you for challenging me on that. And I was thinking that a lot of people are talking today about vulnerability. It's a sort of a catchphrase, but I've never seen so much vulnerability on screen until this movie. And after the movie I had this feeling that I want to know more about how it was made. And I understand you want to keep sort of a mystery about it, but is there more that you can share about the process? Like, for example, that laboratory for feeling, was that something that you organized? How much of it was real? How much of it was fiction?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and we can go up to a point in the mechanics of it if you want, because so we avoid this label like documentary or fiction on the film or experimental, because they can create a very wrong idea about the film. The film is more like a research process, which was where we worked with a mix of reality and fiction, with a mix of personal material and fictional elements or situations. For example, like a very simple, like the most easy maybe to talk about example is the one of the emotional anatomy workshop. There is a workshop in reality which is created by Julia Sparman, a performer and a therapist from Leipzig, which goes in this area, and together with her, we invited her to participate in the project. We designed this specific workshop for the film, so we recreated it for the film, and then we casted people, like real people, based on these personal interviews, and we needed to feel that they really want to participate in this kind of research. So you have this, let's say, constructed or fictional, if you want, structure with rules and with a guide, which was Julia, and within the structure, everything that develops between the human being that go there in interaction, it's really authentic. So, and it's much more than we shot several days, and each of the couple in the film have their own journey, like they go from a certain state in the beginning and some process of transformation to the end of these days, but it didn't enter in the film, so that's why I'm saying that we are going to do separate works out of this research process.
Yeah, I think you can't really, I'm repeating myself, you can't really separate the two levels of fiction and reality, because it's all intertwined with each other. I for myself, I'm playing more or less myself, although I'm emphasizing more on certain aspects of me and my life, and other aspects fall behind the curtain. For example, with the workshop, the body workshop, that was obviously staged as a plot plot point, that several aspects like that was necessary for the film. But what happened, as Adina said, what happened during the workshop was very authentic. We didn't do another day and another day and another day. It was just, we do that and it's filmed and then that was it. So I must admit that must be very hard for Adina because she always had only one goal. And she had to take that material, whatever comes out of it. If there was bullshit, it would have been bullshit.
Couldn't have been bullshit.
Yeah, that's your trust in what's happening. But you have to have the trust. And that's courageous of us.
You know, with these amazing people there, how can it have been shit, huh?
Definitely. Yeah, but for me, it was very interesting. I think I very rarely participate in such workshop in real life. It might be more a temporary workshop or an art workshop with actual aspects, but not in such a therapeutic workshop. I wouldn't have really gone into that in real life, but I'm very happy to have that done because it's very inspiring and interesting, and what comes out of it can be changing for the actor and the person who see it and the audience, and so it's a positive effect for all of us.
And I remember you are like, you were not very happy because you were telling me that, oh, are you gonna put me in a medical? Are you gonna put me in a medical setup again? And are you gonna make me look too disabled?
Yeah, no, too medical, too much focus on the therapeutic and therefore on the deficiency side, because you know the image language of the film is very clean and white, which we describe as simple, cozy, comforting, peaceful and so on, and I can relate to that. But on the other hand, the color white is also connotated with medical, and doctors dressed in white, nurses dressed in white, the beds in the hospital are white. So here a disabled person in a white setting makes this thing about deficiencies, being healed, being processed, whatever, and we go into a factory, which is called a hospital, and afterwards they come out repaired, and I don't want to be repaired. And so it was very, very important for me that I also had the chance to appear in the other setting, in the club.
In the fetish club. Because, you know, we have different perspectives, because you said, for me, the white scene with the workshop, it's a self-exploration situation. For you, it got the connotation of repairing something which is...
medical setup.
Yeah.
And I know that many people have that mindset. And it was important for me to go beyond that point.
A bit closer with the microphones?
To go beyond that point, to change that view. So to put that, to make a contrast, it was very important for me to also appear in that fetish shop, to show that I'm a normal sexual being as well, not only one which is to be repaired.
Prin explorarea sexualității ați depășit aceste aspecte de taină, deci este ceva, prin dezvăluirile dumneavoastră, ați fost foarte curajoși, eroici.
You broke some kind of mystery through this revelation of sexuality.
Și aș vrea să vă întreb ce s-a întâmplat, care este trecutul dumneavoastră? Ați avut niște evenimente traumatice care au necesitat tratament medical?
Did you have traumatic events in your life that needed medical assistance?
Who's the question for? Because Adina gave me the mic.
Pentru actori, I think it's for all of us. I mean, it's for all of us. And you know, it's interesting because, I don't know if you've been here from the beginning, but just before I was saying about this huge preconception that it's also very strong in Romanian society that if you go to like therapy, like psychotherapy, it's something that you do when you are sick or you have to, you have a disease, you are wrong, so you have to become good. And that's a huge preconception, like psychotherapy, it's a process of self-reflection. And what we engaged in the film, it's a process of self-reflection, which I think every human being should do. I would let my colleagues talk about this idea.
De înțeles, înțelegeți?
Da, înțeleg, dar nu vreau să vorbesc în engleză. Și aș vrea să...
Lăsați-i să răspundă.
No, it's because I wanted to add something. If you, I won't do it now, but I could actually. How many people in their lives have thought about killing themselves? And you'll find that a lot of people will put their hand up. So despair is something that a lot of people have felt. It doesn't mean you feel it every day in your life. It's like, Christian says that he's not always such a clear-minded and relaxed and open and calm and intelligent. And so, and I was thinking the other day when somebody was asking about the film, I was saying what it does do for people, it makes them realize that they're not alone, because everyone has a really difficult time with something. I don't know anybody.
Dar e ținut în secret, pentru că este o parte a culturii noastre, această taină, unde nu se vorbește. Și
It's part of our culture to not talk about this.
Yeah.
Dar dumneavoastră ați avut curajul să vorbiți. Pentru că ați avut curajul să vorbiți, eu cred că dumneavoastră ați trecut printre momente de încercare mare.
Because you had the guts to talk about this, you are very brave to go through this process.
And I survived.
Dar totuși sunt aspecte de taină, care nu este chiar mister, este altceva. Deci sunt niște chestii care se lasă deoparte și nu
și dumneavoastră vă ascundeți, nu ziceți de fapt ce vreți să ziceți.
Nu știu dacă este bine să aducem lucrurile la lumină sau să le lăsăm așa cum sunt. Deci, bun, asta dacă e o încercare care are if this is a remark which has an undertone of judgment, whether we shared something of our experience with the audience or not, maybe that's the question. I'm going to tell you that this film worked in very interesting, powerful, emotional ways for the audience. We only recently started to go out with the film, and we start to have people, and this is very emotional. We have people coming to us after the screenings and saying, there was a lady which really got me very emotional after the screening on 31st, and she held my hand and she said, I have to tell you something very important. I am Laura. And I invited that lady to this discussion, and she told me that I cannot talk about this, but I have to tell you this film is very important for me. So this film can function as a sort of a mirror, like our experiences can mirror other people's experiences, and in that sense, you don't feel alone anymore. Da, și se pierde taina. Asta este. Yes. And we lose the mystery.
Yeah. Sorry. I would like to take the opportunity because the question was in the room about the medical thing and traumatic experiences. And I would like to answer this question in two answers. One is very personal and one is more general. And I will answer with a personal answer first, although I think that's not the important one, because it's more about the society as a whole, and you as the viewer than as me. But never mind, I will still answer it in a personal manner to give you an impression what that's about. When I was a child, I was institutionalized. That means I lived from my 6th year on until I was 18 in a home for disabled children in a rehabilitation center. And that is very traumatizing, I must say. When you are separated from your parents and put into an institution because society thinks they can't handle you in a different way, it's horrible. And that changes your life in a negative way. I'm very happy that I got a very supportive family who always took me home when I was sick and when there was no school in the holidays and so on. So I was not always separated from them, but I was, a long time, a very traumatizing time. And that taught me that a magical mindset, a magical model of disability has always the aspect of separation. We sort people into, are you valuable, are you treatable, are you curable, and not, or not, and what sort of institutions are you put in. And that's the most horrible thing a society can do to a person. And the more general answer is there are two models of disability. One is the medical model, which focuses on the deficiencies and to be cured, that you have a medical condition which needs to be treated in order for you to get healed then. And only by doing that, you can be integrated in the society. That is what people thought until the late 1990s. And now we have the social model of disability, which is, it defines disability as the interchange between the personal condition and the barriers in the environment. So accessibility plays a big role, and the social side of society plays also a big role. Which services are provided? Is there personal assistance, and so on? And disability only appears when there is a lack on that side. And that is very important, because the blame then is not on your side, because you are deficient, but society is deficient. In that respect, that it doesn't support you properly.
Just two small remarks from my side. When you try to make this transformation, this transsexual transformation, you have in Germany, I don't know about many other countries, but it's maybe the same. You have to go to a psychiatrist, yeah, even to get some, we name it Gutachten. I don't know. A psychiatrist has to make a statement that you're really transsexual, which is a little bit ridiculous, yeah, because only you know what has happened with you. But there's a certain dependence, and because it's urgent for you, because you need access to hormones and surgery and so on, yeah. So there was a certain pressure, and we in Leipzig, where I come from, we had the very luck that there is a very comfortable psychiatrist which doesn't treats us very much, but I had to go to him in every quarter of the year, and he just listened to me what I was telling, but I tried to take it a little bit seriously, writing for me a sort of, not diaries, but what happened in this 3 months between meeting him again, yeah? And it was very interesting for me to reread that after some time. That's the one point, yeah? It's this balance, because on the other hand, transsexuals often tell you, well, I don't have to go to a doctor because I'm not sick. There's, I just am in the wrong body and want to get to the right one, but I need surgery and these medical helps to get access to. So that's the one point. And the other point which occurred me in my mind in the night when I just before I went to sleep, this mirror metaphor, yeah, it's a little bit dangerous because if in the normal mirror, yeah, you're looking at a mirror, you're seeing only yourself, yeah. The mirror in this film, it's more like, it's not like the Dorian Gray mirror, but you see something different, you see something similar, but it's not exactly what you expect from a mirror. It's something what enlightens you. And that's, strictly speaking, that's not a mirror, but you always take it, and everybody understands what's meaning. It's a little bit interesting to me, and I just wanted to make this little remark because it occurred in my mind yesterday in the night.
Thank you. Acolo în spate, vă rog.
Hi, I'm Lydia. I wanted to say that this film is haunting me for a week. So I saw it twice, and I keep remember the scene all in all, various scenes. So I feel like I have 1,000 of questions, but I dare to put just one. I wanted to. It's about the boundaries between documentary and fiction. Which are the boundaries? I don't know. But the moment of that Ra, was it real? Was it fiction?
What do you feel?
Well, for me, the entire film was real.
Well, that's what's important.
So the screenplay was developed after the...
No. What you saw was what happened. Okay. What you felt was...
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
But I'm also interested in what the film was made. So this is why.
How it was made.
How was made.
Do you want to answer that?
I could.
It's my favorite question, you know, like.
I think the question is, at what point in this process the script was clear?
I just want to say one thing, is that every actor's dream is to not act. And when I met Adina, she said, what are you looking for in acting? And I said, I'm looking for a state of grace. And whatever road it takes, it's when what you're doing is real, and that's what I call freedom, is whatever happens, you're in the moment. And everything that's in the film, I think, is a moment of present.
I felt it. Okay.
If I could add a little bit on this reality, not reality, and what was interesting for me, coming from an actor's perspective, because normally you prepare for a role, but in this case, I mean, we tricked ourselves with which we thought maybe was fiction, because there was some structure which was fictional, and so sometimes I even started as a tutor, and I came out as Thomas from the film because I had another name in the beginning when we started. And by giving a fictional structure, you think that you're someone else, and it gives you a lot of liberty. But at the end, you found out that it was maybe a lot about yourself. But if you think it's about yourself, you start watching yourself from the outside, and that's very bad because you become very self-conscious, and that's also the problem of an actor. A bad actor is, if that even exists, is someone that is looking at himself acting, is not in the moment acting. So I think it's not so much about important if it's real or not real, if it's the stories which we're saying are exactly something that happened to us or not, but it's more something that the emotion is real, which we are going through. Even if it's fictional, it's something that we are really feeling. That's, I think, is the reality of it.
And I can also like add this aspect. I was answering you a bit earlier about this like relationship between fiction and reality. How, for example, I gave you the example of the workshop. So there is this fictional structure which often served us more as a sort of a safety net, because within a fictional structure, we had the freedom to explore areas. We had to, which other difficult, because, like Thomas said, if we explored it in a regular documentary setting where we use to give a very concrete example, we use these fictional personas for some of us. If you are called Tudor, you are not called Thomas. You enter in a situation which you don't predict, with a lot of also real elements in it. And then what develops there in the human interaction is much more free than, because if it's you, Thomas, you are obliged somehow to be in a certain way like Thomas is, and you start to be, to be reluctant, and you start to close yourself because you don't want to show your vulnerabilities. But what happens when you are under this fictional, let's say, persona, this offers you a playground. You can go places where, for example, Thomas, I give an example here, like Thomas never dared to go, but he always fantasized to go. Like the possible Thomas, like the dreamed Thomas, like the Thomas from a memory. You never know where this material that Thomas brings in the scene, you never know where it comes from, and you don't need to know because it's not relevant. It's a very true, authentic material, but also the privacy of the human being is protected in this environment, It can be anything. The important thing is that it's authentic, no matter the source. And then gradually it became interesting because like all of us somehow, we all kept our names in the end. Because these characters which you see in the film have many layers. It's maybe a part of Laura Benson, a part from Adina, a part from Thomas, from Christian, from Grit. It's a part is there, layers are there, but there are also layers which are imagined, wished, from other sources.
Thank you.
And I wanted also, it's a very particular situation here with Grit and Christian. I wanted to have Grit share a bit with us this experience of sharing, working between fictional situations, but also sharing a part of your real explorations and interests and dynamics in relationship.
Yeah, for me this was the first time in a film at all, and it's a normal process. I think that first of all, you're asked to do a certain scene and you do it the best you can, and you only get creative with it by doing it over and over again, and you get used to the idea and so on. And it was a challenge for me because I wished I would have been much more creative with scenes, with this open process. And generally I feel I'm an open person, and I wish that I will explore that more. and Adina was asking Christian to be in the film, and they have been filming before, stills, and yeah. So Adina said she did not know me at the beginning. So she set up her ideas, and it was a long process, and it settled itself. And I think the original idea was that she has an assistant carrying Christian around, doing certain things, scratching his hair and so on. And suddenly I came into being and I took over this role, and I do that with Christian normally as well. It's not something alien to me. But at the same time, I have a relationship with him. I'm not just a scratcher. I'm not just the one carrying him around the whole day. And
What did you say?
But you can see that very intensively in the film as well, that we have a real and proper relationship.
Yeah, my purpose was not to have an assistant for Christian, was for have you both as a couple share with us part of your life.
But I think it was proposed like this in the very, very beginning. No?
The thing was that when we first met and we explored the script, and Adina was telling me about the script and she was developing it, I was single. So you were not there, and I think the film would have been totally different without you. It would have been a totally different film. I think I would have also appeared and made my dialogues with Thomas and so on. But there would have been a very, very important aspect missing about it. And that's it's a miracle, more or less. And I'm really sure that Adina would have done something wonderful with it, even if I would have been single during the filming, because she's a great director. But you having you with us, is a miracle, and it's a gift, and it made the film so much deeper, you know.
Closer.
Yeah. When I saw the film the first time, I saw myself, and that was with my own anxieties. It was like, whoa, what I just said, I'm very much a practical person in the film, and I wish I could see myself in this relationship. Maybe our relationship is so natural that I don't see it. I don't see it as particular.
You wanted me to give more space for your relationship in the film,
yes.
No?
Mm-hmm.
We make the next one. It's, and I just want to tell you, I mean, we have to do a double reality check also with the viewers, but in my feeling is that the film is not showing you just as a caretaker of Christian, but also as a partner.
Yes.
Can I ask someone? Hands up.
In the SM Club. Yes, in the SM Club, yes, we have seen.
And the hair scene?
And brushing my hair and
And in the workshop you kiss him?
Can you give him a bit?
I'm not that sure about the hair scene though. Because my assistants, they stretch my hair as well.
No.
Yeah. I see.
Not
Okay.
the scratching scene.
Yeah, that was also the funny one.
Yes, we have another question here.
Okay. Hi, my name's Eleanor, and congratulations for everything you've done. To say the least, you've brought all of us here, and you've opened our curiosity so much so that we want to know more about it and our own sexuality as well as others' sexuality. A question which kind of goes a little bit back to the beginning of this interview, of this Q&A, where you mentioned, I think Laura, during her audition, had to do a dance, and you asked her to bring her own music and to do movement, which helped you see the character shape up. My question is, first of all, and I apologize if you've already mentioned, has any other person gone through the same kind of process? And also, is this something for all of us? Simply because I live in London, and I went, again, out of curiosity, of course, I went to a very interesting place, well, a kind of a workshop called the Five Senses, where we literally danced for 5 hours, and we were not allowed to talk. And it was, I mean, the revelation that I personally had was out of this world, because of course we are inhibited, and there's a lot of stuff that society has built, you know, on top of our heads, so to speak, or inside our heads, rather. So my question is, do you think that movement is a key into the subconscious? And would that be the key to us freeing ourselves of all the mental obstacles that we have?
There's a very interesting field of work, which is this psychosomatic therapy, and there are a lot of body work areas which are very much connected with the emotional and you know, psychological areas, which we explored also in the film. And there are many interesting workshops and professionals and trainers out there which can offer you this kind of work. I mean, you have a person here in the room, which is actually Rick Vermeulen introduced here, a workshop called Waking Up to Imagination. So you have all these procedures of working with your body and with dreams and with movements that can really open areas of yourselves that trigger the self-reflective process. And I was very lucky to work with people here which are all, they already had a lot of experience in this self-search area, so I think all of them. I do think that the body is an area where emotions get stuck, and there is a lot of emotional luggage in all your body. You know, they say your stomach is the other brain, for example. There's a lot of knowledge, I think, my wonderful colleagues can share with you here in this respect, and we worked with stuff like this in the film.
I know that for me, there's also cellular memory, and I know that I've found myself having these emotional, I don't know, upheavals, just by being in a particular position, and I discovered it because I had back problems, and I went to go and see a chiropractor, and at one point she just made me do this, you know, very banal exercise, and I just burst out crying, and I had this weird taste in my mouth, and if I moved my position by 1 centimetre, the emotion totally disappeared, and I came out of that session feeling really, really depressed, like, and then I realised, and that was a real click, was that it was like as if my psychic had farted. You know, it was like I was releasing all this disgusting stuff. And the tendency would be to project a story onto it from my actual present position and say, yeah, I'm depressed because the list is long and there's this and that. And in that, what happens is that you swallow it back in again. Whereas if you just think, my psyche's farting, and just let it be, it's like you can actually release things through the body without going into the head. And there's another thing I did which is called Holotropic Breathing. And the guy who created that, I think it's called transpersonal therapy, and he's Hungarian, and I've forgotten his name. And I did this. No. And he used to work with LSD, and when LSD stopped, he thought, what are the other ways, because he saw the benefits of LSD, what are the other ways that I can reach the unconscious? And he studied in lots and lots of different cultures, and one of them was breathing, and the other one was music. And so in the workshop, there's a whole thing and that was quite something. I mean, it was really, really powerful.
And I can also say a bit about the
Music?
music and the body.
Yeah, about the music, for instance, first, because I brought these Brahms pieces into the, because I'm very addicted. In English there's some song I make some Freudian mistakes, in Germany I don't. Because my father loved very much Brahms and he was a piano player. And okay, I told this story in the film, yeah. And it was really important to me to have this music. And when I started sex work, I took this about the massage. I took these pieces of music were very suitable. This mixture of piano and cello, for instance, piano and a deep string instrument is very suitable to begleiten my massage, yeah. And finally, after 1 or 2 years, I saw, okay, I dropped it a little bit, yeah. I made it only occasionally, and I moved to other things, but it kept in my mind, and this music is so important for me, this energy. And on the other hand, this is the second piece. Adina is interesting. Adina wanted me only to take this E-moll sonata, yeah. But then I thought, well, we also have to make some more bright thing, this second string quartet, yeah. To take a little bit more brightness in it, yeah, because it was a development also with Laura, yeah. So that's the point on it. And also another point. Well, I'm a little bit jealous. I was accustomed to classical music, and this means music without body. For me, yeah, music which is only in the brain, yeah, strengthen your soul. But when Laura dances in the last piece of the film, I got so jealous on it that she could dance so and this is a real great moment. And the point when Laura broke the record, when her father died. Yeah. Okay, maybe it's not your father, maybe it doesn't die. It's not clear, and it's. Well, I don't tell the truth. Wipe that out. It is a moment for me. For my reality about the film. My reality about the film. It's there is a development. She has gotten this with the soul, but now she wants to go a step further. Yeah, and this is this dancing at the end is so completely logical development. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, talking about this memory, which both in the body and even in our DNA, because I believe also in transgenerational memory. Is something that a story I would like to share with you, a very personal one, which came up because of thanks to Adina actually, because she gave us some of us at least, a wonderful book called Attachment in Psychotherapy, which I highly recommend. Great book. And I was reading this book and I was looking at my life in perspective and thinking about my childhood. And I was in Paris with my grandparents, 92, 94 years old today. And I was talking to them and like, how was my childhood? How was I as a child? And they were like, my grandma said, well, you were very different from now. You were often very angry. And I said, okay, yeah. How so? And she said, well, when I was 3 years old, my parents, which were still together back then, they're divorced now, they brought me to the summer house of my grandparents in Normandy, in north of France. And then they went to Paris, and 3 days later they were supposed to come back. And we go to the train station to pick them up. The train comes, and my parents are not in the train. They missed the train, they took the next train, and back then there were no GSM to call. And I showed no sign of anything, and I went back in the car with my grandparents. We drove back home, and they started to cook. And then suddenly, oh, where is Thomas? He was 3 years old. He's disappeared. And it was a very long summer house, and they were cooking one end, and they went to the other end, in the room of my parents. They found me there with the biggest knife that there was in the house, killing them symbolically in the mattress. This crazy anger. And when my grandmother tells me this story, the memory which was stored in my body, I didn't get the memory in my head, but it was like if someone punched me in my solar plexus, and I lost my breath and I couldn't talk. I was like this, and this memory was there. And then I was so lucky I've been working with a shaman who was a good friend of mine. I called her right away on a Skype, and she brought me on a journey to go visit this incident. And this is something also that has been proved now with mice, for example. If you let that mice endure a trauma and you bring it together with a certain smell, the next generation, if you bring the smell, it will bring up the memory, the trauma, because it's inherited. So we are all born with a lot of inherited trauma from our parents or ancestors. And that was something that we found out there, that this was something from ancestors, abandonment, that this crazy anger that rose there was something not even my own, but something that I had in my genes. Someone else would have had the same experience, wouldn't have this crazy anger coming up. And so this was, we carry a lot, so there is a lot of work to be done in all of us, I think.
Something very short. I have no question. You know, Adina, I like you very much. I like you very much. Congratulations.
Laura
for
was
the
my
movie.
teacher in film school, editing teacher.
Doesn't matter because I was her teacher. Really, I'm very happy because I'm here. You're a lovely person, and it's normal because close to a lovely person like Adina, everybody is amazing. Congratulations. It's a great, great movie. I have seen 1 month ago, yes, and I have seen again now, and I have to see again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you very much that you are here. It was really for me something really very special because you are very special. Thank you.
Mulțumim frumos! Thank you very much!
I ask you to deliver a final message to our audience today. I think it's the proper moment to do this.
You know, who was saying that? I think Hitchcock was like saying, leave the message for the post. But I would launch an invitation. Because this film is an invitation to dialogue, and most of the people that came here are people who watched the film, and we are very happy that you came here to discuss further with us, because I think this film can go beyond the cinema room. The discussion, it opens a discussion that can go beyond, and this is why for us it's very important to have the cast here, to have like a first round table. It's a test also. We see how it goes this time, because we would like to travel with the cast and to have these discussions with the audience to try to bring this dialogue that the film opens further into the world. And I would like also to have my colleagues answer to this question, because it's very interesting, because each of them would like to share something through this film. Maybe you don't.
Just skipping her and coming to her later. Well, what we didn't mention in no discussion at all, yeah, there are some formal, strict aspects, for instance, about the colors in this film, yeah. And for me, this film is real. It's also a real piece of art, because there are so many aspects. And if you ask yourself, what's the message? There is no message. There are so many messages and so many different things that you cannot bring it to the point. If it would be else, you should write an article in the newspaper, and you couldn't. Yeah? And so I think when I made the experience to review the film and to see the third time and to see the fourth time, I always followed other aspects, yeah. I think it's also when I watch some other interesting film, I see, well, I have the desire to see twice, to see three times, and life is too short that sometimes you cannot do that, yeah. And this ambiguity, I think, is for me it's the greatest thing about the film. Yeah, there's also messages, but it's not restricted to the messages. Many questions and also a strict structure which refers for me. One about classical music. One last thing. Classical music for me is high emotions and strict form. This bringing together. Yeah. And when I watched some formal things, I also saw some very strictness in this film, which never has mentioned in these whole discussions before. Yeah. Okay. Who wants next?
That's an interesting discussion that we will continue tomorrow about the cinematic language and about these other layers of the film. You know, today we focus more on you and the research process. I will pass it to you.
Share an emotion about your experience here in Cluj.
No, I know. Well, I don't have a message. I don't feel I know. I'd say the film, and each time I see the film actually, so I've seen it 3 times. Yeah. No, I know. And I find it very gutsy, and when I mean gutsy, I mean it's very intestinal, very kind of. When I say crude, I mean non-filtered, and raw. And I'm very proud to have been in the film. I'm very proud to have participated. And I'm very moved. I could burst out crying right now. And I just hope that the feeling that one gets from the film afterwards is a moment where you can actually move something. And it's a moment to take advantage of. And so either by speaking to people, or I find sometimes just the fact of saying I've seen this film and what it did can open up discussions. And I found that one of the things that I learnt from the film, which to answer your question, was that I found the other people's relationships with their bodies and their sexuality was so much simpler than mine that it kind of took the taboo away. It didn't take away the mystery, but it took away, and it made it so less scary. And I just hope that that fear, that the film will take away a certain amount of fear to make things easier for lots of people.
And I think by being us here as well, and I think it makes it also that we are as vulnerable beings as everyone else, and that we struggle and we are so much tied up as well, and we live our life, and it's important to share that and important to exchange that. Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful to have had the opportunity to be here, to invited to this wonderful festival and to this wonderful city. I must admit I was full of preconceptions about Romania and how it would be to be here, and I was afraid of how I can manage to move around, and I would have to face many barriers, building barriers, architectural-wise. And there were barriers, of course, but I must admit it was far, far, far better than I was imagined. And it's not much, no, it's not even worse than, for example, Belgium or France, which has much more many barriers. I do have the advantage that they have very wonderful people who are so helpful and made all the barriers disappear. I mean, it would have been better if there hadn't been any barriers at all, but you managed to make me feel very invited, and I'm very grateful for that feeling.
Then
And I have Bianca having a message, the producer of the film, to send about the film.
Sorry, I'm intruding. I wanted to be part of the audience because the message is actually for the audience, but also for you guys. I've known you for years already, and being here in the audience, and every time I hear you speak, I learn something new, which is absolutely incredible. I'm very happy about that. And I just want to say that I feel privileged to having been able to hear you speak here in this manner. And I think that this group of people are here, we are privileged to having heard you speak for these 2 hours. And I wanted to launch this invitation to you who are here, because we will try to release this film despite everybody's preconceptions that this is not a film to be distributed easily. We will try to do that, but we will definitely need help from people who have seen the film, who believe in the film, and who believe that this message of tolerance, inclusion, and freedom has to be shared with the others as well. So what I would suggest is to tell people whom you think would love this film that it's worth seeing, because they would believe you more than an advertising campaign, I'm sure. And it makes it less expensive for us as well. So thank you. We are trying to release the film. We will release the film in cinemas in autumn in Romania. And we hope to do this in every country where we have secured distribution so far.
There are 30 so far, which is great. Yes, and 40 festivals coming.
I hope you're still alive by the time you go to the 30th country. But yeah, so this is all I wanted to say. Just thank you again.
And we wanted
for
to
everything.
also to thank you this wonderful thing here. Mihna, thanks a lot for hosting us, please.
thank you, Christian. Thank you, Chris, for us.